Hello, sir. Got that spiffy bow tie on.
Well, yeah.
I went over corrections for the family.
And so we were, we own that a lot. Let me tell you something. She's a jerk. Well, you so much space to get our business is our business. But she was just real short.
Oh, okay. All right. And here, okay, so here is. Exactly.
So we just have those two amendments?
Those two are the only ones, and then at the, after we're gonna take personal privilege, recognize splits. So, and here's the allegation statement. They're different. Yeah, well, they're listed. Let's make sure you got two different ones. One of them is the, yeah, this was my future schools, and this is future aid, so.
tell him not to eat those.
Yeah. Shan, if I put these back here, can it be safe?
She ready? She ready? Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll, please?
Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman Robinson, Dr. Highlander,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon,
Here.
Mr. McClendon,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here.
We have some amendments here to the agenda quickly. We will have an add item 3, moment of silence in memory of Everett Fairchild. And also under Roman numeral 12, we will add item D, request for school name approval. And then also we need to add to our delegations under Roman numeral 7, we will have Carrie Bishop and Jennifer Semenko, then David Sneed, and then Elizabeth Baker. I don't know. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ford?
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon, Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, we'll move to Mr. Smith. Do you have something here for the recognition?
I'm sure that that all has heard of the news this week of Everett Fairchild passing, and I can just tell you that certainly the older I get, the more I understand that this is not home for any of us. You know, we're all just passing through. And, you know, we can take a great joy in the passing of Everett Fairchild, because it's really a celebration, because if you know the same Jesus that Everett Fairchild knew, then we can take a lot of comfort and a lot of joy in that. Everett, way back when I was in the 7th grade, and that was just a few years ago, he was an assistant principal at Red Bank High School. And I guess back in those days, Dr. Johnson, I was probably diagnosed as oppositional defiant, and I can probably still be diagnosed as that sometimes today. but I can remember that Mr. Fairchild, more than a time or two, let me understand what oppositional defiant got you, and he would always tell me he loved me after he did it. But what I remember more than anything in the 7th grade, him being the assistant principal at Red Bank, what was then Red Bank Junior High. And if you can believe it, in the 7th grade, I failed math. And I know it's hard for you to believe, Steve, but I did. And I remember that summer, he didn't have to do it, but 2 days a week, my mom would take me over to Red Bank Junior High School, and Everett would meet me. And he spent 3 hours on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. I'll never forget that. And after our sessions, each time, he'd always say, "Joe, I love you. I love you." And the reality is, it wasn't just words to him. He meant it. And I think he meant that with every young person he came in contact with. I don't have his obituary in front of me, so I won't read that, but I think we all have Everett Fairchild memories. And tomorrow afternoon, they'll lay him to rest, and they'll celebrate his life. And I think we can all celebrate his life. I know when I decided that maybe I wanted to serve on the school board, he called me, and I spent a lot of time in his home. And he was sick then, but he took the time to encourage me and mentor me, and he was my friend, and I'm going to miss him. So I think Rhonda, I see her lighting up down there. I bet she probably got her backside lit up too a time or two.
No, I never did, Joe. Believe you know, I know that is hard to believe. I never got in trouble the first time in school, and that's a fact. If I did, I'd been killed at home. No, Everett Fairchild, serving with him on this board, I tell you what a gentleman he was. And we didn't always vote the same way, but he always gave his reasons for how he voted, and he was very passionate about it, as was I. And we just had a real good relationship. I would call a lot of times and ask him his advice. He gave me a lot of good advice on the board. He told me people I could trust, people I couldn't trust, people to look out for, situations to look out for. A lot of that good advice that as a new school board member you need to know. And I trusted him because he was just that kind of guy. But he was a gentleman, and I can't say that about everybody I've served on the board with, but he was certainly a gentleman, always kind. And I'm like, Joe, I'm going to miss him. Every time I saw him, we always had real good conversations, and he'd want to be brought up to date about a lot of things. But he really had a passion for this school system and a love in his heart for the students. We're all going to miss him.
At this time, we just ask that you. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Highlander, go ahead.
Joe, I like to say I had a relationship with Everett too. He never told me he loved me, but he did say, "Steve, I trust you with my daughter." And I dated her my senior year in high school. To me, that said a lot. You know, when he said, "I trust you with my daughter," he said, "Your dad is pastoring a church that my dad used to pastor." And he said, "If I can't trust you, I don't know who I can trust." And, of course, she said, "Steve, are you dating me because you want to talk to Dad about schools and sports, or do you want to date me because you want to date me?" But I did get to go over to the funeral home and visit with the family, and his wife of 67 years was there, and the 2 surviving children. He has 1 son who passed, and the 2 surviving children. And we are fortunate to have one of his grandsons in our school system as an educator, and I'm very thankful for that. And the family, as Joe said, the family is sure of where he's going, and that's because they have hope in where he's going, and that's that means a lot. Good, Joe.
I just ask at this time we're going to observe a moment of silence for Mr. Everett Fairchild. So if you'd join us, please. Thank you. Also tonight, just want to take a point of privilege here and just bring to your attention one of ours, Miss Caritza Mosley Jones, and the passing of her brother this week. So we just ask that you all keep her in your thoughts and your prayers, and never easy when a loved one passes, but particularly at this time of year. So just ask that you all, again, be mindful of her, and if any of you know her, I know she'd probably love a text or a card or a call. So that's why she's not here tonight. All right, next here on our agenda, we will have our pledge to the flag and our meditation, and that will be led by Emma Sneed of Soddy Daisy High School.
Hi, welcome everybody. If you would please stand for the pledge and then remain standing for a moment of meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here in this room tonight, and I thank you for those in this room who understand why education is so important. I pray that whether someone is speaking or just listening tonight, that we would all have one shared goal, and that would be to put the students first. Thank you for your example of the love that we should show each other every day. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sneed. Next year, we'll have our exemplars of excellence. Ms. Jill Levine.
Sorry, just kidding. Do you have the student from Ottawa High School as well? Come on up, Mr. Thurkill. Good evening. I'm excited to share that Mayor Coppinger ran his annual art contest this year. Hamilton Shines once again. And we had 3 winners, and I'm excited that 2 of the winners are Opportunity Zone students. The first is Emma Hornsby, a 5th grade student at Orchard Knob Elementary. And her work, if you'll hold up your work, Emma, will be displayed on billboards. And I think her family's in the back, but maybe have some children in laps and things. So congratulations, Mom, as well, and Mr. Thurkill, of course. I do want to add that we added an art teacher at Orchard Knob Elementary this year, and now we're winning contests. So I think that's important to note. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And then we don't have the student from Eastlake, but we do have his teacher. And do you have his art work?
No, he has it at home.
He's not here yet, but he did. Mayor Coppinger went to all 3 schools and honored the students in assemblies at the school. So it was a great day for us in Hamilton County. And I'll let them come and shake hands. Is that okay?
Yes, love to.
Just could you say, ask if Evan Malden is here?
Evan Malden is not here, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go to school tomorrow and give it to him.
Okay. All right. Next, we'll have Future Ready 2023 presentation.
My name is Tammy Baxter, and I have 2 daughters. One that is a junior here at the Soddy Daisy High School, and I have one that graduated in 2018 from Soddy Daisy High School. I've been the band uniform mom. I am the first vice president for the last 3 or 4 years of the band booster. I'm the vice president of the PTA. I've been the parent rep for the parent advisory for the superintendent. I'm just an involved parent as far as if there's something that I can get involved in. If they need something that a parent can help with, then I try to volunteer and try to get other people to volunteer. I am Hamilton.
evening, Board. It's my pleasure to share with you our progress for Future Ready 2023 in the area of engaged community. And we started out with our clip from the I Am Hamilton videos that we have been sharing with the community over the last few months, I guess, at this point. And we've been featuring teachers and students and community members, alumni, and parents. And that was a clip from Mrs. Tammy Baxter's video. And as usual, when she's, or when there's something going on in the school district, she's here tonight. So she would stand. And thank you for all that you do for your children and for the children of their schools and for this school district. And the I Am Hamilton videos really just focuses on each person's commitment to our school district and how each one come together to make up this great school system. So more of those to come, and we hope you enjoy the I Am Hamilton series as we continue. Next, we're going to look at engaged community key performance indicators, and these help us, of course, to determine if we are on track in our efforts in communications. And looking first at some of our engaged community figures in social media. If you look at Facebook, we have doubled our followers in the last year from 2017. And also, we've engaged 25,280 more users than during the same time last year. So we're making progress there. And all of these still not where we want to be, but certainly significant progress is being made. In our Twitter account, we've doubled the number of people who are followers to over 4,000 at this point, 4,600. And also, we've had more than 140,000 impressions in this past year, and that's 100,000 more than the year before. So things are trending in the right direction. Looking at our website, and we're very happy to have a new website this year that began in July. So you're able to see a little bit of how that's changed our dynamic of people being able to engage with our website over this year. But as you look at that, our users are up 52%, new users up 52%, page views are up 36%, and sessions 34%. So everything trending well there as well. And if you look at YouTube, we've really made a significant investment in video in this past year. You will see that if you go to YouTube, we've increased our number of views from 9,000, a little over 9,000 to over 47,000 in the past year. And increased the number of people who actually are subscribed, which means every time we post a video, they're informed that a video is up and they can look at it. That's increased from 43 to 325 in the past year. And if you haven't had a chance to go to the YouTube page or the YouTube channel, I hope you'll do that. Check out some of the videos that are there. And also, if you haven't had a chance, look at the stream of the board meetings that we also save there. I know you've participated in them, but hopefully you can maybe go back and scan through one of those and look. Over the past year, we've really changed the way those look, and we've increased the ability for people who can't be here in the evenings to really be able to get a feel of what's happening in our board meetings on our YouTube channel, and we save all of those for you to go back and look at. Some key strategies that we have worked with in the past year: promote positive culture, climate, and communication, strengthen pre-K through 12 area learning community structures, and empowering community and decision-making process for our school district. One thing that we have done this year, there have been a couple of sessions of Leadership Hamilton County Schools. 18 of our community leaders have come together and participated in this first cohort, and they've completed 2 sessions of Leadership Hamilton County Schools. The next one in January is going to be Principal for a Day, so that may be kind of interesting when our community people get to participate in that, and so we're looking forward to that coming up next month. Also, again, the I Am Hamilton Spotlight, we're not able to do videos as fast as we would like because of the time that goes into that, but there's just so many people in Hamilton County Schools that need to be recognized for what they do each day. We started to take pictures and do those type of recognitions to be able to honor more people throughout the year with I Am Hamilton. So at this point, that's really helping us to reach out to our schools and let people know how important they are. In promoting climate at our schools, we are in the process now of conducting surveys that were put together by the Tennessee Department of Education for safe and supportive schools. 19 schools are currently in a pilot, and they will be taking those surveys through December 20th. The remaining schools will also participate in that in January, and that's going to give us a lot of information. It's going to give us a baseline setting for a lot of our KPIs that we are looking at for the rest of this year. Community schools, that's a big part of our work. Also exploring by all means, and that's a part of an initiative led by Harvard Graduate School in Education. This year we've introduced a new look to our logo to try to freshen up our representation of Hamilton County Schools as we send things out to the community. If you've noticed hopefully you have, the new logo that's being used across the district. And we want to thank the Johnson Group for the efforts that they expended in coming up with this for us, and they did that at no charge for the school district, and we appreciate their efforts and their ability to step out as a community group and say we're willing to invest and help our school district to move forward. Also, we've introduced a new web-based newsletter platform that will have a new district newsletter in the coming weeks, and also each one of our learning communities will have a newsletter as well, and we'll extend that down to schools who are interested in having newsletters, and those trainings will take place in January when our staff comes back after the holidays to get the schools involved in that. Our learning community facilitators, they are key people in our plan for communications in the listening component. We want to not just share information about the district, but also take the time to listen and understand what our community wants from us as a school district. So they're assessing learning community needs and resources, and they're also out there working with our communications team to put together strategies to help the learning communities to build that cohesiveness as a group of learning communities. And I'm kind of surprised at how quickly our learning communities are really coming together and people are catching on to that concept. It seems to be popular with our parents. Our facilitators are also working on a very important issue, and that's chronic absenteeism. And also strengthening that bond between the schools in these learning communities to help them as well. We have the learning community kickoffs, about 400 attendees in 4 of the learning community kickoff events in November. 60 community partners participated in that, and we appreciate all of our community partners who get in there and join us in the work in helping to get people involved and getting our parents out to be a part of these activities. Parent universities have taken place. We have 8 parent universities that have been held. 111 parents so far have participated. A total of 4 sessions for each of our learning communities will take place, and these are facilitated by First Things First and Urban League. And again, we appreciate our community partners being a part of this effort. Parent and teacher advisory councils have taken place. We have 12 advisory council meetings that have happened so far, and they've been held across all 5 learning communities, 68 teachers participating, 42 parents. Overall, teachers and parents have been pleased with the changes that we're making in our school district to help children and prepare them for the future. Some of the items that have been discussed in our sessions with parents and teachers. With our parents, communications, also facilities improvement, clear learning targets, and teacher retention. And parents are, of course, interested in even more parents being involved meaningfully in engagement. Our teacher feedback and the discussion items for teachers have been input on instructional purchases and procedures, recruitment retention strategies, and parents as partners, and teachers expressing the interest in more training in the use of technology and math and literacy stations. Some of the upcoming items that we have want to make you aware of, and we have some dates here. These are not absolutely in concrete at this point, but are some target dates that we're looking at right now for these events. My Future Schools Fair, which is going to be a feature of our magnet schools that are available. That will be coming up. Leadership Hamilton County Schools Principal for a Day. We've talked about a new event to let our community know about where we are as a school district and where we're going is going to be State of the Schools coming up the first week of February. Superintendent Learning Community Listening Sessions, we held these last year. They're going to be focused on learning communities this year, and you'll have dates for each one of those. My Future Schools Fair will be the Future Ready Institutes, open enrollment, early college, all of those schools coming together to share what they have to offer children in the area and families, and our business partner education breakfast that will be coming up the end of February as well. And those are the things that we have been working on at this point in communications, working toward Future Ready 2023. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to address those.
Anybody? Ms. Hill.
I think that it's really exciting just how full January and February are going to be with opportunities for the community to interact with our schools and understand better the options that they have for their students. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more. You said that we've got parents who are getting pretty engaged with the concept of our learning communities. Can you tell me a little bit more about that feedback? Because I felt like some of it's, there's so many opportunities that it's a little confusing, university versus learning community.
And I was specifically referencing how quickly they're really understanding what learning community I'm in. And what learning communities, what schools are in the learning communities. It's really being picked up a lot faster than I anticipated that it might be.
Ms. Lennon.
I just, excuse me, I just would like to say thank you for getting all this information together for us. I know it's a lot, and I appreciate all of it. I think it's important for everybody, the community, to see everything that goes on behind the scenes, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you. And there's a lot of people involved in it. As I have always said, communications involves everybody in the school district. Everybody has to get involved for us to be successful.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hensley.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll have our delegations, and we will go In this order, Miss Jeanette O'Markell, then Carrie Bishop and Jennifer Semanco, then David Sneed, then Elizabeth Baker. Let me read this before you start, Ms. Jeanette. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If you are criticizing an individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. If you continue to criticize individual employees, or if your remarks are in error or are becoming repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. You may begin when you're ready.
Greetings, Chairman Wingate, Dr. Johnson, and board members. The holiday season is upon us. Along with it comes all the trimmings of wonder, merriment, and joy. In addition, what often comes along with the trimmings of this season is a mixture of stress, hurry, worry, and healthy doses of anxiety. Many of our students and staff within the school district are experiencing a range of such feelings and are welcoming a break to refresh and re-energize for the new year and to prepare to thrive for the remainder of the school year. I remember as a child all the wants and excitements of the season, waiting for the Sears Wish Book. Some of you remember that. The hours my brothers, sisters, and I spent going through the book and marking what we wanted, praying for Santa to come and make it true. As I've grown, my list has changed. It has moved from fewer wants to mostly needs. Parts for a piece of equipment that is broken, replacing things that have worn out from use, and those types of needs. This is also the time of year that my family reflects on the past year and looks to the next year with discussions of our hopes and dreams. I've spent time listening to educators in Hamilton County and beyond, as many have shared their hopes and dreams for the future of education. These are not all things that can be bought with money, but can be achieved with focused time and attention and taking a few intentional actions. Here's what I continue to hear from educators as part of their top 10 list of hopes and dreams for the education of future of education. Number 10, quality instructional materials. Almost all Tennessee teachers report understanding what the standards are, but fewer teachers agree that their instructional materials are well suited to teaching the standards. Teachers want real textbooks sufficient for the number of students in their classroom. Only having textbooks for students online is a concern, as students learn through multiple modalities. Number 9, teachers want real and relevant professional development opportunities that they choose to attend. Teachers across the state report that they seldom choose the professional development sessions they are required to attend. Adult learning research supports the practice of professional learning experiences being most helpful when the experiences are either selected by the teacher themselves or the sessions they attend are with grade or subject level teams. Number 8, teachers want fewer whole system changes at once. Given time to adjust and implement new whole system changes with fidelity, teachers are better able to interpret and manage the changes with better success for the students and themselves. Number 7, teachers want adequate resources for all. Teachers and students in every learning community should have adequate resources. Number 6, teachers want more individual planning time. One teacher was quoted on this past year's Tennessee survey to say, "I'm sure if I want to give up my 45 minutes of planning time, the administration would love for me to observe other teachers, but I feel this should be done in additional time, not my planning time. I already give up one day for every week to meet with my team of teachers. Other planning days are given up for parent meetings. Teachers need their planning time to actually plan good lessons." Number 5, teachers want a new Tennessee Commissioner of Education who listens to educators as the professionals and makes education policy decisions based on practitioners' advice, supported by research-based best practices. Number 4, RESPECT. Respect is what teachers want as professionals. Being heard outside of the classroom, having a voice in decision-making at the building, district, state, and national levels. Teachers want to administer and implement meant fewer tests. The amount of time spent testing our students is taking almost 7 weeks out of instruction time each year. Teachers want a safe teaching and learning environment for themselves and their students. And number one, teachers want adequate funding of public education. To have many of the items on the list require funding. Funding is one of the biggest challenges to ensuring teachers are using appropriate materials, best practices, and ensuring that individuals who enter the profession are paid adequately to stay in the classroom. We are working on many of these things in this district. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. We look forward to working with you more to make these items on the hopes and dreams come true. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamarcale. Next, we have Carrie Bishop and Jennifer Semenko.
Thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences with you from our classrooms. My name is Carrie Bishop. I teach 8th grade reading language arts at Hickson Middle School.
And I'm Jen Semenko, and I teach 10th and 11th grade English at Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy.
If it's okay with the board, Jen and I have a little piece of paper with our contact information. Would it be okay if she gave each of you that in case you have any follow-up questions or anything?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So while I share a little bit, she's just going to pass that out and then she'll take a turn. I just wanted to share a little bit about my experiences with T&Ready and state testing. It has dramatically transformed my students' learning experiences at Hickson Middle School. I've been teaching 8th grade for about 7 years, and I've seen very positive changes to the reading and writing experiences that my students have. And I wanted to tell you that I use the information I receive from T&Ready to make instructional decisions for my individual students, as well as to tweak my own instructional practices and refine and improve them. And I just wanted to say thank you for the case benchmark assessments, which I am using, and I'm getting really accurate feedback, and I'm able to adjust and respond to that, and I'm seeing positive results with my students, and I want to thank you for that resource and for the Chromebooks, which have allowed me to individualize and differentiate with increasing success. So I want to thank you all for both of those tools.
Hi, I just wanted to echo a lot of what Carrie said in terms of the way that the T&Ready test has impacted my classroom in terms of the amount of rigor and the rigor that I see across my building. And it's really exciting as a teacher to be able to teach complex texts and hear the discussions that students have in our classrooms. I wanted to just include, this morning I was down in a 6th grade classroom in our building, an English class, and what they were debating, I can't imagine it being a topic 5 years ago maybe, but I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. They're looking at the terracotta sculptures from Emperor Qin in China, and they were writing persuasive essays, and the prompt was, what was more important to Emperor Qin, uniformity and compliance or beauty and individualism? And these were 6th graders having discussions about that, and they were engaging with me in those discussions, and I was just so impressed because as a 10th and 11th grade teacher, if that's what they're doing in 6th grade, I can only imagine where they're going to be when they get to me in the high school. So thank you for your support of that.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
I'll just say quickly that I sat in on the governor's roundtable about T&Ready and went in with one expectation and came out with a very different impression, and appreciate the fact that Tennessee schools are better 7 years later, even though change is hard. My daughter is 14. She is wise. She says people don't like change. And the fact that you all have embraced this and you're seeing that it's better for our students long term thrills me.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say that I've had the privilege to sit in Carrie Bishop's classroom. I haven't had that privilege yet with you.
You're welcome anytime. You're always welcome.
But I just got to tell you, with teachers like this in Hamilton County, we're so blessed to have people like you. And Miss Carrie, you just blow me away with what you're doing with those kids up there. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge you and say thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Highlander.
I just want to say thank you for the positive attitude. You obviously care about the young people, and that's what we need. And I think the vast, vast majority of our educators across the county do. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Next, we have Mr. David Sneed.
Good evening. My name is David Sneed. I'm starting my 22nd year teaching in Hamilton County, all in the same high school as Saudi Daisy High. Actually, for 21 years, I've been in the very same classroom. Everyone has moved on either side of me. The only explanation I can give is that my classroom is directly above the principal's office, so maybe that's a good way to keep track of me. I'm extremely proud of my school, our administrators and staff, and the hard work that is being done every day for the good of our students. But I'm actually here tonight instead of a teacher, but more of as a parent. The young lady who gave the meditation and led us in the pledge this evening is my daughter, Emma. And when I heard that our school had selected Emma to participate this evening, I simply decided to take this opportunity to thank Hamilton County for the work that they have poured into her life. Make it a little emotional here. Through elementary with North Hamilton County Elementary School, through Saudi Daisy Middle, and through Saudi Daisy High School. It's funny to me how before I had kids, I taught one way, but after having my own kids enter into the classroom, my teaching kind of took another perspective altogether. Maybe it has something to do with being able to see the classroom, from a child's perspective, seeing what's really important for kids. So Emma is a graduating senior, and it's hard for me to believe that, and she is about to enter post-secondary college in the workforce. And my question is, like most parents, is she ready? And my answer is most certainly yes. As I've stated, over these 22 years, I'm very thankful for the Hamilton County Department of Education, our school board, teachers, all continuing to grow as educational leaders and doing what's best for our students of Hamilton County and for my own children. I thank you for believing in strong standards that have pushed my students and my own kids to have healthy, productive struggles with their academic courses and pushing them to be the very best and to be able to compete with other kids across the nation. In tandem with standards, I thank you for supporting aligned assessments, as was mentioned earlier, that have measured where my kids have been and where they need to go to be very successful in our world today. And I believe that both of these elements kind of working together will truly determine for every parent and every teacher, will help us to determine the needs of our kids and be proactive. And I think that's the key, that we're all proactive in being part of their educational journey. And that is my prayer for all the parents of Hamilton County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then we have Elizabeth Baker.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I have some information that I would like to give you. That way I don't have to stand up here and talk real long. You guys can read it at your leisure. May I come up and give these to you? Tonight I'm here to ask the board to reevaluate the policy and procedure around closing and delaying school starts. As we know, in this wonderful county, there are many different geographical areas, and I live on Signal Mountain, and Tuesday was a mess. And it had nothing to do with the bus accident because that was not weather related. We had buses stuck on ice, bus drivers needing to find alternate routes because intersections were closed. One intersection was less than a quarter of a mile away from our elementary school, Thrasher. It has a nice, brilliantly newly painted crosswalk that the students are told to use as their safe passage to school. it was covered in ice. I was one of 5 parents in my neighborhood that went to where our bus got stuck. We had to create a human chain to get our students off the bus across the black ice and into vans to get to school. Our bus was stuck for over an hour. So I'm just here not to pass judgment on why decisions were made the way that they were made, but ask you to review those decisions and to possibly find a way that this doesn't happen again. Whether it's a 3-hour delay, whether it's different areas are delayed or canceled in a different manner. It is a very complicated issue, and I know I don't have the answers. I spent the past 24 hours looking up some information about how other school districts with mountains and valleys or 575 square miles deal with this very issue, and that is some of the information that I've printed out for you today, as well as the road conditions that were on Signal Mountain on Tuesday when our kids were going to school. Our first kids got on the bus right around 8 o'clock in the morning when it was still dark, and there was no time for the ice to melt, and there were so many intersections closed. So anyways, I'm just here to ask you to review that policy, and let's try to come up with a solution where all students are safe, including the 7% that are up on Signal Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. All right, we need to approve the minutes from the special called session. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. We also need to approve the minutes of the November 15th regular session. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, Ms. Ford. All right.
Anybody want?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we have any items we need to pull? Sorry.
Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. So that brings us down to item 11 there. Administrative business matters. Mr. Witt.
Thank you, Chairman Wingate. We actually have 2 RFPs and 2 agenda items. A.1, 8.2, they're 2 RFPs. With your permission, I think we'll need to vote on them separately, but with your permission, I'd like to discuss each of them because I think they're intertwined, and just a little history there and a quick background. Did 1 RFP for a building assessment, a second RFP for a future capacity and growth study. Also, a portion of that building assessment was a assessment of our front security upgrade, hardening our entrances, looking at all of our schools, ways to create vestibules to do a forced entry through, all visitors to have a forced entry through the office area. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Joe Clark. We recommended Joe Clark for an MGT consulting group for the building assessment and the capacity and growth study. And then, like I said earlier, as part of the building assessment, we've recommended a second firm, Franklin Architects, to do the security upgrade study. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Joe. He's got a short presentation just to go over the scope of work.
Thank you, Mr. Witt, Chairman Wingate, Superintendent Johnson, board members.
Thank you, sir. Just a bit of background. MGT Consulting Group is a public sector consulting firm. We've been in business for 40 years. We do these types of studies, both of these types of studies, all over the country. Most recently here in your state for the Metro Nashville School District, the Bristol School District, Lee County, and in Georgia, DeKalb, Fulton, Gwinnett, and Cobb. We really appreciate the opportunity to bring both of these together because we think that bringing this information in a consistent and well thought out fashion is going to benefit the district in the strategic planning efforts that you're undertaking at this time. Just quickly want to go through and give you an overview of the master planning process, an explanation and a review of our demographic and enrollment projection methodology, our capacity and utilization, boundary and attendance zone, the community engagement that will go on to describe that and how that will impact the community, the assessment process, some financial data on how we come up with budgets, and some data-driven recommendations and strategies. This is a look at a district example of enrollment projections. And you can, if you start at the bottom, this is a PK5 band, then a 6-8 band, and a 9-12 band. We do a lot of work in large metropolitan urban cities, New Orleans, Nashville, Baltimore, and we have found that there is areas of growth in each, there's areas of decline in each, that a lot of metro urban districts follow this kind of pattern. And at a district level, disaggregating this data is very, very important. But we find that at a elementary level, middle school level, high school level, it's even more important. So we disaggregate the data by school, by grade. And we use 4 specific models to do that. A lot of situations use a cohort survival model, and that's a retention-based model. If I have 100 kindergartners and 102 show up in first grade, I'm growing. If 98 show up, I'm declining. The problem with that model is if you have significant change, like a new school opens and you take students out of this school and move them to that school, where you're moving 200 students or 150 students at a time, it takes that model a long time to catch up. And so the projection will be inaccurate for a period of time. We use 4 models: student per household, which really looks at a student generation factor by household type. So we'll look at multifamily, we'll look at single family, we'll look at planning areas. Mr. Witt and I were talking about growth and where it's happening in the county, where there might be some decline. We'll also look at the cohort survival, we'll look at an average % increase, and we'll look at a linear regression model. We'll blend all those. That's the top left-hand box, and we'll come out with a weighted model that will be specific to each building. So we'll weight them differently depending on the nuances of that building. If there's growth in that area, we may weight student per household higher than if there's no growth in that area. Upper right is a series of scores that will come out of the assessment model. We're going to do 4 assessments on each building: a condition assessment, HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, carpet, floors, windows, doors, roofs. But we're also going to do an educational suitability assessment, where we look at the building in terms of how well it supports program. So my analogy, a little humorous, but do you have science rooms, or did somebody just take some duct tape and a Sharpie and write science and stick it above a door somewhere, right? So that's really a very important aspect of what we believe this evaluation will bring. We also do a technology readiness assessment. This does not count how many computers you have in a building, but looks at the infrastructure to support 21st century classrooms. What's the bandwidth? Do you have fiber? What's the wide area network distribution? Do you have wireless penetration everywhere throughout the building? Those kinds of things. And then the bottom right corner is a utilization distribution projection. So looking at the capacity of a school, the enrollment of a school, and looking at the percentage of utilization of that school. And I picked this school for a specific reason. This is Moorhead Elementary. This is a magnet arts program in this elementary school, right? And it's projected to be at 215% utilization. And why is that? Because there's a very successful program going on in the building. This demonstrates needs in the district, that students are coming from all corners of the district to this program. There's ways to resolve this that are non-capital solutions. Can we create another instance of that program so that there's equity and access across the district? Do we increase the size of Moorhead to accommodate all the students that want to come to that program? So you can see that program impacts these decisions as well. This is a GIS visualization of utilization. And primarily what we're trying to look at here is Moorhead being the bigger circle, overutilized. Are there adjacent schools where we may be able to balance that utilization in a different manner, adjusting a boundary, adding an addition, something of that nature. So we'll look at this information. And I apologize that I'm speaking to this in the reverse order that they appear on your agenda. But we look at this information in a very detailed and very visual fashion so that we can really inform the decision making that goes on behind it. The next piece is then talking to the planners, city, county, municipalities that exist in your school district, and using that information along with heat maps, we can really develop an understanding of where those planning zones might need to change, where they may be able to remain the same, maybe grade configuration, what do we do about K-8 versus K-5, how do we address the needs of the utilization models that are developed through this process. Once we begin the educational assessments, we will develop a set of educational facility standards with you and your academic teams. So as we're in those buildings looking at the educational impact of the program, we will have a common set of standards that we will use so that we have really good inter-rater reliability on our scoring. And Mr. Witt doesn't score a middle school one way and Mr. Clark scored another way. We should be where there should be a minimal standard of deviation between the way we score those buildings. And that's the purpose of putting these educational standards. And we will take some time in the development of this. We'll also help with scoring cut points. Never met a district that had a big enough checkbook to fix everything we find, and I don't anticipate you will have that either. So at some point we have to say, hey, above this line, in the next 10 years, probably not going to see a lot of resources in this plan. Below this line is where we're going to focus. And so these are just examples. We try to put it on a 100-point scale so that the public understands what this means. You know, a C is a C and an F is an F. And, you know, we want to really focus on and prioritize your limited resources where we can do the most good. Same kind of a model with utilization, where we look at where we're over-utilizing space, but also we want to look at an inefficient use of space where you may not have the most efficient use of a building, and that's very expensive. You know, the lights still have to stay on, all the maintenance and all the custodial and all that. I don't have to tell you about that. So we want to look at both aspects, where there's overcrowding and where there's some space available. Here is the 4 assessments: facility condition, educational suitability, site condition, technology infrastructure. These are the ranges of scores. This is the type of information that we'll bring back and share with you as we go through this process. This is just a frequency model of that. As you can see, when you look at the previous slide, I'm just going to, you know, you look at that elementary school condition score, there's a 20. But when you look at the next slide in the frequency model, you can see that not everything is bad. There's a lot of green across there, which indicates that Mr. Witt and his staff and your maintenance and your custodial people are doing a good job. We'll weight these, we'll come up with a combined score, and we'll use that combined score for prioritization. What does that look like? This is the model that we've been using across the country. You can see the grade configuration, the square footage, and then the individual scores for each of the assessments along with a combined score. We use this stoplight matrix kind of a model, so it's easy to visualize where there is challenges and where the priorities need to be addressed. We have RS means data. I know that might not mean a lot to some of you, but that's a national standard for regionalizing cost estimation across the country. So here in Chattanooga, a 2x4 costs a different amount of money than in California. And we use those regionalized sub-zip code levels to generate this model. Mr. Witt and I were having some conversation before tonight's meeting about also integrating into this some of the local data based on the schools that you've most recently built so that we can even get a better perspective on price. But I just want to point out that we do take into consideration FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. We look at permitting, contingencies, so it is a fully loaded cost per square foot that we're doing the budgeting off of. This is a bit of an eye chart, I apologize, but this is really demonstrating the utilization factors, and then you can see for each of the assessments, I think there's probably a laser on here, but each of the assessment columns to the far right is for each of a budget for each of those assessments, and then a total deferred maintenance cost. We just completed a 118 school district, very similar to yours. The total deferred maintenance cost was $1.4 billion. So I say that not to alarm anybody, but to give you a sense of scale. The detail that we're going to get into here is going to generate a big number, and I just want to set the stage for that, so when I come back, I'm allowed to stay in the room with whatever I present. And then we're really gonna put some master planning strategies together, again, around program and what we can do there, non-capital strategies, so, let's not spend the money unless we have to, and then really what are the capital outlay strategies, renovate versus replace, when's a building, done, has it, it's 80 years old, typically they're a 50-year life cycle. So briefly, my team that will be coming I will be leading it. Spent 8 years in school districts. I was the chief of staff and operations director for the State Department of Education in Washington State. I spent 2 years at the U.S. Department of Ed, and I've been doing this for about 17 years. So that just gives you an understanding of the type of individual we'll be bringing to this project. I thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Robbins.
You mentioned looking at the planning agency's plans, like where there's new development happening. How do you account for perhaps lower income areas where there's multiple families living together that's causing growth in our schools?
Right. The strategy we've used in the past is to integrate our information with your student information so we can see where there might be multiple address numbers for a particular housing development. So we may have the Smith family, the Jones family, and the Clark family all having the same address, all having children in your school district. We can make some assumptions that there may be some sharing of those premises. And we've also looked at when we geocode, we will geocode every student using our GIS model. And so we'll have a dot that represents every kid. We'll be able to zoom in on those multifamily dwellings and ascertain that way if there are multiple families sharing residence. And it's quite frequently the case. I mean, when we're in Boston, you know that that's a very diverse culture, and there were a lot of places where guys were, sleeping in the morning, and then they would go to work, and another family would come and use that residence, and they would sleep, and then they would go to work. So we definitely want to take that into account as we go through the study. Yeah.
Mrs. Thurman.
I have questions for Justin, not so much for you, for Justin. I made a few phone calls this morning because I'm probably the only person on this board who has been through these. Been through meetings with the Planning Commission, all kinds of resources that we have here in this county, and we already do a lot of this kind of things. I mean, we already know where all the students live. We already have dots on maps for where the students live. We've done all kinds of assessments. That's how we came up with the $200 million deferred maintenance. I know it was hard work for your, wasn't your staff at the time, it was Gary's staff at the time. I know it was hard work, but this price tag on this to me is staggering. If we pay this much money, we're not having money left to do a lot of the deferred maintenance that we need to do. This is coming out of our general fund budget, am I correct?
Capital maintenance.
I mean, there's no money falling out of the sky for this, correct?
I believe we have it in capital maintenance.
Okay, well, it's still, that's what I'm saying. By the time you add this price tag with the next price tag we're going to be talking about, we're talking about $500,000. Before we didn't pay anything for this. I mean, just except overtime for Gary's staff. I guess maybe they had to work on this.
Actually, we did hire an architect.
Well, that's okay. That's what I started to say. We can hire an architect if we need to, or we can hire structural engineers, but nothing to the college. If we see something we need that kind of help with,
we did get.
We already use a lot of this kind of data that even that's been a few years ago, and I'm sure it's probably improved since then. When we were deciding on where to build schools, where we needed schools, we had the Planning Commission come in and explain to us the growth patterns. They explained to us where people were going to be moving, where there were going to be subdivisions built, how many families were going to live there, the ages of the kids. I mean, we've seen all of this. And I think we already have the resources. I'm just not sure why we have to have this kind of a price tag to do this.
We actually did get another proposal from an architect just for the facilities. And
well, I'm saying do that ourselves, and if we need their help, if we see that we're going to need the help of an architect, I mean, you're talking about, I think we paid them probably $35,000, $40,000 to help us before, but nothing like this.
I meant the proposal we had from an architect for the facility study was in line with.
Well, I know. I'm saying we didn't have we didn't hire a consultant to come in and do the facility study. We did it in-house. We've never paid this kind of money for a facility study ever. And you know, if we don't have the people on staff, I mean, we have your staff, we have some of the other staff in the school system, we have all the resources that the county has to offer. We have some of the best architects. I know we have one here that works in-house for us. I know Dan, he does a great job. And we, you know, there's just lots of resources that we have, and I'm beginning to wonder, do we not have anybody on staff capable of doing this? If not, shame on us. A school system this size should be able to look at our buildings and we know what's going on. We have a list. We made a very exhaustive list in 1999. We've updated it and updated it. Of course, sometimes we fall off the rails and don't follow their plan that we had, like when we went and did Rivermont when everybody else was needing things. I mean, we do stuff like that every once in a while. But I mean, I'm just having a real problem with the price tag on this.
I think not only the deferred maintenance, I mean, we have a big list, and it's 200, our number was 200 million deferred maintenance. I think where they are going to help is that such a big number? How do you tackle that number? Here's the large scope of work that needs to be done. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to get a master plan.
Yeah, but you have $200 million, and we're taking $500,000 right here to pay it to somebody to tell us to spend another few million that we're not going to be able to get either. So this is what I'm having a problem with. After he comes and tells us how many more bazillions we're going to have. Okay, great. We have a nice piece of paper that shows us everything that we already knew, and we still can't pay for it.
Just a couple of things. So I think if you take that number in isolation, it is significant. When you really break it down by the number of campuses, it's roughly $6,500 a building that we're spending on each building to get a comprehensive assessment of where it is. And I think from the public, and again, I'm a taxpayer as well, as we begin to spend taxpayer dollars, we, you know, with the scope of buildings we have and the issues that we have with some of our, I put Saudi Daisy Middle. You look at Saudi Daisy Middle. Let's take that building in isolation.
But I don't need him to tell me what's wrong with Saudi Daisy Middle. I know what's wrong with Saudi Daisy Middle. Justin knows what's wrong with Saudi Daisy Middle because I call him all the time and tell him. We don't need an out-of-town person or anybody to tell us what's wrong with Saudi Daisy Middle. We know what's wrong with that. But I tell you what, I vote to spend almost $500,000 on these two things right here for somebody to come in and tell us what things we should already know. And we have Sell Creek up there that still have to trail their football team down to McKenzie or down to the stadium, down to UTC Stadium down there to play football, that their community can't watch their football team because they don't have a football field, can't get lights on it, can't get bleachers for it, and we're spending $500,000 for people to come in and tell us things we should already know? I mean, I'm sorry, maybe it's not a big deal to somebody else. Howard's getting a football stadium that's about $6 million we're getting ready to vote on in a little while. And this stuff like this just makes me angry because I've been involved in these planning sessions before. I've sat in meetings for hours and hours planning these things, people showing us growth patterns and things. That's what we pay these people for. I don't know what we're paying some of these positions for. This should be their job. I mean, we built schools here in this county how many schools do we have? 79? Somebody built those schools, and we knew where we needed them. And I don't know whether people are just wanting somebody else to do their work for them, whether people that want to be able to put the blame on somebody else if it don't work out. I'm not sure what's going on here, but there's no way I could vote for this right here. And the people in Sale Creek sitting up there, and the people at Soddy Daisy Middle, and that school still, even all the work that's been done on there, it is still woefully inadequate.
And I just only add, Ms. Thurman, they're like that across this school system.
Well,
It has been staggering to come into the school system and see our facilities. They are like that across. I can go in every district for every board member, sit on this dais, and it is unbelievable. And so I think to the point, we only have so many dollars, Ms. Thurman, and how we spend those dollars, we have to be very thoughtful about. And to spend $500,000 on something that over the course of 10 years, you're probably going to have $500 million when you combine growth and the needs in deferred maintenance. I think it's prudent for us to have expertise come in and support Justin and his team. I mean, I will tell you, this district, and Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, over the course of the last few years, we put between $3 and $5 million year over year into upkeep or maintenance for the school system. That's probably the equivalent of a household putting between $300 and $500 into a house. I don't know about you. I know about me. $300 to $500 in a home doesn't get me ahead. It keeps me kind of aligned. So the board charged us as one of the evaluation indicators to bring in some external support to help get hold of capital. The Mayor Commissioner Budget Working Group that made some recommendations around getting hold of our capital. We know that we operate a lot of buildings. We need insight and expertise as to, is there a more efficient way to operate? Do we need to be, what schools do we need to consolidate? Based on that, where are the growth patterns and what do we need to look at? Right now in District 7, the East Brainerd area, we are in a situation right now where really we probably need an elementary school coming out of the ground.
Okay, we know this. Why do we need somebody else to tell us this? You're making my point. We know all of this. But we don't need somebody to come in and say, you need a school over in East Brainerd. I'm saying, no kidding.
But
really? Now, the problem is, where do you get the money for that? We don't need somebody else to tell us where we need to spend more money. We need to figure out how we can save money on our end so we can do some of these things.
And that's what we're working at. But I think you also have buildings that were built in the 40s and 50s that children are still going to school in, and we need to understand what investments do we make and what investments we don't make. And so,
well, we have built so many new schools. If you think they're woefully inadequate now, you should have been here a few years ago before we built about 10 schools. We have made huge progress on this. The community has supported us in this, but I just can't see that they're going to support us spending $500,000 for somebody else to come in and tell us that we need to spend a few million more, a few $100 million more.
It's about $6,500 a school that we're spending to get a real in-depth analysis on where we are.
Okay, instead of telling us what we need up at Soddy Daisy and Sale Creek, if you'll give me the $65,000, I'll put bleachers and lights up at Sale Creek Middle.
$6,500.
Good grief.
Mr. McClendon.
I want to say thank you for Dr. Bradshaw, Justin, for the work y'all put into this. As someone that's new to the board and someone that is recently a graduate of Hamilton County Schools, going back into some of the schools that I am now a representative for, it's been shocking. Dr. Johnson has gotten many phone calls, so has Dr. Bradshaw, where I've been kind of appalled at the state of our schools. So thank you for doing this. I welcome it. I don't think it's shame on us. I think our schools have been kind of neglected. And if we have a funding body that doesn't want to give us money, that's shame on them. Just going into this, the preliminary report, I know Dr. Bradshaw and Justin, y'all kind of talked to us about, are we still, I think it's on here, it's not kind of laid out, but are we looking like a March time for that or a February time?
I think a very preliminary, probably in March, but I'll let Joe speak to that.
I think we will have some assessment data and budget information for you. I think the strategies, recommendations, and that sort of thing specific to each building will come a little later. We're targeting to have it completed by the end of the fiscal year. So, but we'll have incremental reports for you as we go through the process.
Thank you.
May I ask another
Thurman.
question? How much money did the county just give us? Before we shame the county, how many $1 million did they just give us for building?
100 million.
100 million. Okay, that don't seem like shame on them if they're not willing to fund. They did quite a bit to help us fund. So I'm not going to shame the county. I say shame on us because a lot of times we spent money doing stuff like this when we should have been taking care of our schools. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll just be clear, it's been welcomed. The mayor and I, the commissioners have had very open dialogue and conversations about where we are. And Justin's team did a really good job of trying to do all they can. So it's definitely not shame on the county, but as you look at this system over the course of the next 10 years, there has to be a determination of how do we get control of some of our buildings, and really, I think, and the thing I'm probably most excited about are the standards for learning environments. Because that's what it really boils down to. It's all about teaching and learning. It's the standard of the learning environment, and what will we accept and what will we not accept for our children. I think we all agree on what we want what we want for every single child. The same thing we want for our own individual children. So definitely.
Well, you can't say that the older schools are the worst schools because that is absolutely not the case. Normal Park is in a really old school. Fallingwater Elementary was a blue ribbon school. It was over 100 years old. So that the newer building makes smarter kids is ludicrous. And so it's what goes on inside those walls that makes a difference.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all your hard work. I've got a question. We've had a priority list that we have vamped and revamped and looked at. I know when I first came on the board, Ms. Thurman was here, and we've had a priority list of what the needs were. Are we tossing that out and starting fresh, or how long do we think this process, assuming that we choose to go through this process, what's the lifespan of this assessment?
I think that depends on us. I think that's a good starting point. Our assessment that we have. I mean, we've also done some utilization. I think that's another good starting point for them as well, to compare numbers and see how accurate we are. With this package is also a system called Basis, cloud-based system that once we have this as our baseline, we can go in ourselves, if the software is included, we can go in ourselves and update as we make improvements or as we do renovations. So it's a living document that we can keep updated. But I'll let Joe speak to other systems as far as a full, what is a typical, what other systems do typically on these type of assessments?
Right. The average planning cycle is 10 years, simply because beyond that, the enrollment projections get a little crystal ballish. But the facility master planning strategic part can be as much as 20 years. To Dr. Johnson's point, if this is an educationally focused endeavor and you're trying to look at, for instance, right now, the Perkins money that's coming for CTE dollars is requiring that we blend STEM into those CTE dollars, and that those students that have chosen a career path as opposed to a college path have that same opportunity in terms of STEM education that others do. That's going to radically change what we do in career and technical education, and the facility is going to have to support that change. And my assumption being that I've worked in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, and a number of districts that very, very similar to you have a broad range and age of buildings, that you don't have that in every one of your buildings. And this will at least give you that kind of information and how to prioritize over the next 10 years. And we respect the data that comes from the district. We analyze it in depth and detail because it will give us guidance as we go forward. But I think it's important to realize we do this all over the country. We're a third-party objective group of individuals. We do not build schools. I tell everybody I've got a plane ticket home. I don't have any skin in this game once it's done. So we can be authentic and transparent and hopefully bring you a good long-range plan that will stand up well for you over the course of the next 10 or 20 years.
Mr. McClendon.
Going back to the county and shaming them, when I go into a school and there's black mold in the athletic trainer's office where kids are being treated when they can't use closets because the mold is so bad. When I go into a cafeteria and there's rat droppings, it's someone's fault. It might not be this current board or this current county commission's fault, but it's someone, and I think this is a step in the right direction to fix it.
What can I fix it for $500,000?
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ford?
Okay, Dr. Highlander.
I hate being first. Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
No.
Mrs. Thurman.
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, do we need to, you guys have any more presentation regarding?
You need to approve both.
Yeah, do you have another presentation?
Yeah, do you have anything else you'd like to say about the second?
Both combined into the same
Okay,
presentation.
do we have a motion to approve the RFP for existing capacity and future
So
growth?
moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford?
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
No.
Mrs. Thurman.
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, Mr. Witt, do we have anything to present as far as item number 3 there?
I do not. Other than this was part of the county bond fund for the Howard and Track Complex.
Okay, will you just explain that just quickly as far as the funding for that? And
So the funding is county funds. It includes 8-lane track, rubberized surface, football field, field house, fencing, and stadium seating.
Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Do you have a ballpark figure on what that total cost is? I know we've seen that before, and I just
It
don't
was
remember.
5.8 million.
0.8 million? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Robbins?
Hold on. I'm sorry, 5.9 million.
Justin, I've had a lot of phone calls and questions from people in my district about the county's desire to create, to make sure that minority businesses are working on projects like this. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, and that was actually a question that came up in the county commission meeting.
Okay.
The PNC Construction was the low bid, and they are a minority, 100% minority contractor.
Okay. Do we know if they will also have minority subcontractors?
We can check on that. I think that's part of the DBE paperwork they have to turn in with their after the bid, after they receive the bid.
And I know that a lot of times, even though the county attempts to make that happen, sometimes it's just, it's been seen like that it's not able to happen. I've had a lot of phone calls about the sensitivity of minority companies, making sure that we have subcontractors that are minority-owned companies working on this project. I mean, and I think that in all equitable reasoning, like we should try to do that on all projects, but there's some sensitivity around this project specifically, which is why I'm asking. And so if there's any way that you can look more into that and just let me know so I can let my constituents know, I'd appreciate that.
Do they know that it's a minority contractor?
I don't think anybody knows yet that it's PNC. This was like over the last month that I've been getting phone calls. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Smith?
Couple of quick questions. Is that $6 million coming out of the capital money
I'm sorry, no, that's county bond funds.
Okay. All right.
And just an update, I did take this to the agenda session Wednesday, and they vote next Wednesday.
Okay. Temperature with those guys. I mean,
I think it had a lot of support. I think it's been on the table for a long time, and I think it has a lot of excitement.
Second question: will that actually be managed and run by us or by Howard High School, or is that going to be part of their Parks and Rec? Or
no, that's our property and our facility.
Okay. All right.
Mrs. Thurman?
Justin, we don't have any say-so whatsoever who people hire for subcontractors, I wouldn't think. I don't know that we've ever had that kind of power.
The county has, it's a DBE, good faith effort solicitation, and they list the number of subcontractors they solicit. And then after the bid, they list the contractors that actually either submitted a bid or were low. So once we get that, we can submit that. But I think it's a good faith effort.
Yeah, we don't.
Dr. Highlander.
Call for the question.
I can. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Ford?
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, that brings us to board policy heaven. Dr. Towns Edwards, I know these are second and final readings, but do you have any comments before we begin?
Chairman Wingate, I would just say that in the board memo, there are 17 policies that we are now proposing for second and final read. To your point, these were all on first read agenda items last month or the month before, and we also have reviewed these at our policy committee review meeting. So I turn it over to the board to vote on each of these items individually.
Thank you, ma'am. I would just like to say, I know the last couple of board meetings, we have had many policies come up for approval, but I would just like to say that I'm very thankful for the work of the district and also the leadership of Ms. Lennon, because a lot of these policies have not been addressed in a very long time. I mean, we're looking at some policies with dates of 04 and 05, and so as tedious as it may be, I think it is part of what we're called to do, and I'm thankful for the work that you guys have put in, so thank you. So board policy 3.500, do we have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.200, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.201.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill? Mrs. Jones? Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.202.
So moved?
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.203.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.204.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill? Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.206.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board policy 4.207.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.211.
So moved.
Second.
McClendon.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.300.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.402.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.403.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.404.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman? Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.407.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.602.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question
Yes, sir.
related to this this particular policy. Had a question come up. An 18-year-old student does not want his parents to see his grades. Does he have that right?
I think we talked about this at policy.
The answer is no.
He does not have that right.
As long as he's listed on their tax return as a dependent, they have rights to see the grades.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion, right? We need a second.
We need a second.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.607.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Board Policy 4.609.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. That brings us to board matters. We have a textbook adoption. Dr. Robertson.
Chairman Wingate, thank you. This is just coming to request the approval of the textbook adoption committees for this spring. We have several social studies, IB math, English language arts, and a couple of CTE committees requesting and recommending your approval.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, that brings us to open enrollment request. Ms. Jill Levine and Dr. Robertson.
Chairman Wingate, we've got a quick presentation we'll walk you through, just to give you some background of where we're coming from with open enrollment and some of the recommendations that we've taken some action on since Monday. First of all, if it comes up, you've got the slideshow in front of you. I'll catch you up here in a second. But May 2017, there was a budget working group that made several recommendations, and there were 3 bulleted items on that first slide that point out some issues that we're trying to take action on, and we feel like we are addressing some of these issues, looking at the number of students in our buildings and the population shifts across the county and how that impacts building usage. And then finally, again, looking at the investment in the $200,000 or $200 million in deferred maintenance. Guess we wish it was $200,000. The next slide, on slide 3, looking at the building utilization report, what we've done with this open enrollment is we've really looked at schools that were under 80% of utilization, and those are the schools that are listed there. Of course, Rivermont was approved earlier in 2017. It's the second year that they've been in open enrollment. Then Howard Middle will come online in August of 2019. I'll catch you up on the slides as soon as we get there, but I'll just continue to walk you through.
It's not working. Justin, it's not coming.
It's not going to work. Okay. Well, I'm on slide 4 for you that you've got in front of you. So trying to think through why we're moving forward with open enrollment. There are several reasons, and we bulleted a few of those. Number one, looking at efficiency. Again, trying to make sure that we're being efficient with the utilization of our buildings. And that impacts staffing as well. We want to make sure that with the staffing we have, we're using them to maximum capacity. Also looking at previous successes, mentioned Rivermont's April or May of 2017 when it was approved, and this year Rivermont Elementary is up to 75 kids in kindergarten, which is a huge success. And then mentioned several times, but the prior successes we've had as a county system before the merger with open enrollment. On slide 5, I think what is the biggest is looking at the options for students to ensure that we're looking to ensure that all kids have opportunity to go to schools that fulfill their interests and provide them access to opportunities and, again, pathways to possibilities. That's a huge piece of this plan. And then number 1, to just expand the options for students, making sure that we're looking at the best fit for students, making sure their families have a good of an understanding of what is available for their students, and it's not just a zoned school. And finally, on page 5, the last bullet, we have a ton of great things going on in Hamilton County, and we haven't done a good job of promoting those, and we haven't done a good job of ensuring that the public understands what opportunities are available in Hamilton County. If you look on page 6, I'm sorry, not page. Yeah, page 6. So when we say My Future Schools, what are we talking about? We're not just talking about open enrollment. We're basically encompassing all the option choices that were within Hamilton County. So we have magnet schools, we have future ready institutes, we have the early college schools and programs, and we're going to put open enrollment schools into that. So when we say My Future Schools, those are the 4 categories that we're talking about. If you look on slide 7, again, going back to this idea of us having a lot to offer, there are a lot of positives that we need to celebrate across Hamilton County schools. If you see on the far right, this is a 1-page document that we're going to be doing this spring for every school. We're right now getting the information and the things that schools want to highlight so that we can really promote those across all 5 learning communities. But on the left side, just highlight some things that in the past 12 months, 18 months that we've been able to accomplish that we really want to celebrate. We have 40 plus options in Hamilton County, something that I don't think many people are aware of. We've got 17 reward schools, 25 received a level 5. We're a national leader in digital fabrication labs. We have 17 digital fabrication labs across our school district. We saw some great teachers earlier today that were talking to you. We have 53 national board certified teachers. At student body, this is amazing. We had 10 national merit semifinalists that were announced just a month ago. That's an amazing number. Again, 125 plus languages and dialects that are spoken across the county schools, and highest graduation rate since 2013. So the next few slides, and I won't go through these, it'll show you what the options are. So it'll show you not just magnet school options, but it shows the early college programs and schools, the future ready institutes that are across each high school, And then the recommended open enrollment schools, we've highlighted Rivermont in green because that's an already approved open enrollment school. And we got a question earlier this week that I thought was a good question, is Brown Academy was approved at that time. It's the same time as Rivermont a couple of years ago, but Brown Academy is a magnet school, so as the way we're compiling these now, it wouldn't make sense to have them on both, okay? So those are the 6 new open enrollment schools that we're proposing. I want to walk through a couple of timelines, and as we look at My Future Schools, I think it's important that we are tight in the timelines across magnet school options, and as we lead into the Future Ready Institutes and open enrollment schools. So magnet school application window is currently open. It'll close on January 31st, and those would be the first seats that would be announced so that parents would know whether or not they were accepted into a magnet school. At that point, we would start looking. Actually, the window would open right after the close of that window, February 1st and through March 15th for Future Ready Institutes, early college, and then open enrollment schools. And again, we would have those announced by April 1st. Important, announced early in the spring so we can ensure that staffing is where it needs to be. But we're encouraging principals as they look at the open seats in their schools that they do it based off their staffing. So again, we can be more efficient with the use of our staff. And on page 11, just some more dates that we're going to have open houses for magnet schools on January 14th, the magnet schools fair on the 14th, and the open houses on the other proposed dates. We do have magnet schools that already have some things scheduled, and we're not going to ask them to reschedule. We're going to get that information from them and make sure we do a good job of helping them promote what they already have scheduled. And again, having a My Future Schools fair on February 19th and some open houses that will be determined at a later date. So earlier this week when we met, we had several questions and some things that we were pressed on to get in order. And so we've made some recommendations, and this is through the a principal working group that we mentioned we were meeting with on Tuesday. We met with that group that included the open enrollment principals, and we're able to nail down a few of the guidelines that we needed to put in place as we move forward with this. And we bulleted 4 there that we already know how we can address those issues. What do we do about students that get into an open enrollment school and don't show up to school? So we'll put a maximum number of unexcused absences, and at that point, they would have to stay below that number to continue in an open enrollment seat. Talk about student misbehavior and the work that Dr. Bradshaw and his team will do with the current code of acceptable behavior, and we're going to put a point threshold, so it's going to be a very clear number. If a student exceeds this point, again, the seat will not be available for open enrollment moving forward. Thought this was a great idea that came out of our principal meeting, that we're going to expect parents to attend an orientation session prior to the beginning of the school year so they can be oriented with the school and the expectations of the school, and everybody was in agreement on that. What are the academic requirements? Initially, there would be no prerequisite. So we want this to be an opportunity for every student in Hamilton County, but the student would have to be approved in a grade level. So for example, if a student was approved in a 7th grade seat and didn't promote to 7th grade, then we wouldn't allow the student to move forward. If you flip over to the last page, there's some recommendations that are forthcoming, some things that came out of our session earlier with you guys on Monday and then with the principals on Tuesday that we still need to address. I'll just run through those quickly and just know that we'll have some recommendations that will be forthcoming. So talking about matriculation within feeder patterns. So if a student starts at Red Bank Middle in open enrollment, would they be allowed to matriculate to Red Bank High School? How do we address siblings? So if we have one student that's accepted open enrollment in 6th grade, has an 8th grade student that is a brother that wants to come, what do we do about that situation? We had some really good conversation with the principals about parent volunteer hours. We haven't landed on a solution there, but we're committed to working through that to do it in a way that everybody is in agreement with. We have a little bit of an issue to work out with middle school athletic eligibility. Had some initial discussions with TSAA, they've assured us they would work with us at the middle school level on a case-by-case basis. At the high school level, we wouldn't press that. We want to avoid any indication that this is something for recruitment, and it's not for that. This is about academic opportunities and access to quality educational opportunities for all students. Other questions that came up: how will we support English language learners and exceptional education students? English language learners and exceptional education students would be open to this. We've got to look at how we ensure that the support follows the student, that it's appropriate there. And then finally, how do we help prepare and support a school community for open enrollment? So those are some things that we know that we need to work on, and we have a meeting actually set already. I just lost it off the top of my head. It's sometime the second week of January with these principals. Assuming that we'll get approved, they're going to come back to help us put these guidelines in place, and we'll continue to work with that group moving forward this spring.
Dr. Highlander.
I appreciate the work, the diligent work that you've already put into this. I mean, I really do. I think we get the cart before the horse if we approve it before we see the ramifications. And I mean, I am for open enrollment. And Dr. Johnson, thank you. Dr. Johnson has assured me that it is open across the county, not to just certain areas. Is that correct, Dr. Johnson? Open enrollment totally across the board, everyone. And so I appreciate that very much.
Just the schools that we have listed.
Correct. But I mean, to those schools, they're open for everyone throughout the county. And let me ask you, Dr. Robertson, are there behavior prerequisites for coming?
Not prerequisites, and that's what we said in the things that we would need to address, that we'll put some guidelines for students that as they come, there would be an understanding what the expectation would be moving forward.
I think there should be a behavioral prerequisite before they go. If they have a long-standing behavioral issue problem, they should not be allowed to go to another place.
Right.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and I meant to put this as I was presenting this, just reminder, when we went into this agreement with Rivermont and Brown in 2017, there were no guardrails in place.
And there should be.
It was just open enrollment, and it's been a huge success at Rivermont. It hasn't been as much at Brown, but I think that's probably because we need to do a better job of thinking about their magnet status already. But at Rivermont, we've now got a kindergarten class and a first grade class at 75. And from two principals that have been there, Nikki Bailey, who started it, and Jill Evans now, I've heard nothing but positives. And that was without guardrails. So I hear what you're saying about cart before the horse, but we're trying to move forward so that parents know their options. And we've got 6 principals that are on board with this moving forward.
I think you've done well, but I would like to see it before I vote for it. I want to be absolutely certain that the open enrollment is not a dumping ground. And I mean, I gave you an example in the Monday meeting that quite often I know that when a new classroom is open and a principal says take 1/3 of your, say if there are 2 classes, take 1/3 of your students, send them, they do not send their best and their brightest and their best behaved. I mean, hopefully they will sometimes, and a really ethical teacher would send some of each. But we've got to be careful I want to be careful that these schools don't get behavior problems from other places. And I am thankful that it would be from across the board. But I would like to see you complete this and then we vote in the January meeting. I understand what you're talking about on expediency, but I personally think it's better to do it correctly than to do it fast. But that's just my opinion. I am all for open enrollment done the proper way.
Ms. Lynn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, there's a couple of things. They're going to have to provide their own transportation. Is that
correct?
That is correct.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
and the principals don't get a say in this. The central office is going to make these decisions. It was explained to me if there's 6 openings and you get 6, no matter what those 6 are or who those 6 are, you have to take them. Is that correct?
So the principal would have the say in determining the number of seats that they could accept. So
I understand that.
Sixth grade.
Do they have a say in the students?
No, at that point it's open enrollment,
Well, no, that's not the way we ever did open enrollment. You've alluded to how the county used to do it. That's why it was so successful. The county never allowed just anybody to go to any school they wanted to do without the principal kind of knowing who they were and where they were coming and why they were coming there. So, that's one of the things that made it successful. The city always wanted to kind of control where their kids went, and the county kind of said, we're going to let the principals have a little bit more autonomy than that. And that kind of concerns me since we don't know what we're going to do about the behavior and saying we're not going to let the principals have a say. That kind of bothers me because, you can either get rid of about 6 or 8 kids at a school and change a school, and you can really mess up a school with about 6 or 8 kids. And I don't think that's fair. Are the parents going to have to sign anything that makes them understand about their child's attendance record, their child's grades, are they going to have to sign something so they know up front?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the recommendations that came out, is ensuring that every parent had attended an orientation session. So if a student wanted to go to Soddy Daisy before they started that school year, they would have to attend an orientation session. So the principal and the school could lay out the expectations and make sure parents understood what those expectations were.
But they're actually going to have to sign something,
Yes.
I'm not just listening. Okay. But I'm with Steve. I would like to see the rest of this. I don't like voting on things that have an open end to them, because sometimes the stuff gets put on that open end that's not real pleasing to me.
Just one thing. I don't know that clarify for me, magnets, Rivermont, Future Institutes, there have been no guardrails per se around those programs, right?
That's correct. And that's, some of the things that, lessons learned from Rivermont and moving forward as we try to expand this, we feel like we need to put those guardrails in place. But it's been successful across the board. And I think the other issue is we've heard from the community, we've heard from, members of the board, a need for this process, not just open enrollment, but for the magnet process to be transparent. And that's what we're trying to do here. I think that allowing, just like we'll do with magnet schools, for the selection to go through Power School, and it wouldn't be central office selecting. It would be a transparent process that is hands-off on our part and on the principal's part. So I should have mentioned that as well.
Well, I just want to go back to if the principals begin to select, we don't do that with magnet schools, and so I just think it's a conversation for the board to decide on whether or not, if the principal's going to select. We are working through the principals from the standpoint of having them around the table, helping us develop guidelines, making sure they're on board, and giving them the option, hey, if you're not on board, because, having been a principal myself, that school leader is what makes the culture, sets the culture, gets the teachers behind them, the community. And if they don't want it, then it's not going to be. It makes it tougher to be successful and tougher for it to take. So that was a conversation we had with this group of principals on Tuesday, and definitely I think the guardrails, so to speak, that will be developed around this will help inform some of the work that probably should have been in place for magnets and for candidly speaking, we 3,000 hardship requests last year. Hardships have essentially been our open enrollment mechanism in our school system. So it's a choice that the board makes, and I would ask the board to consider approval with the understanding that we will bring some finalized recommendations, but it's not like we've had something to work from that's been pre-established going forth. We are developing. We talk about being the fastest improving school district in the state of Tennessee, and that's not just about student scores. That's about improvement in process. I will tell you right now, I'm sitting here right now, I can't wait. I've got a note written sitting right here because I want to talk to Emily Baker, because I want to figure out how we improve our processes. And we don't have a process for this. We're establishing processes, and I would hope that we would allow this to move forward so that we can let the public know what we have to offer in Hamilton County Schools. I don't know that the public really fully understands. I'm proud to serve in the school system, and board, you should be proud of your leadership. And so that's our focus and our goal really going forward. And we agree that we need to be clear with what the expectations are. There has to be an expectation of academic excellence. The good thing I will say is I think that parents are making a commitment, because a parent's going to have to get up every morning and take that child to that school, which means there's got to be a level of engagement in what's taking place. So,
Mr. Robbins.
I'm a fan of open enrollment, as you know. I understand completely where Steve and Rhonda are coming from. But with that said, I think that my big question mark on this is around the timing. So I understand that you've got proposed dates for the upcoming school year. Are there plans to make this an earlier process moving forward? Okay, can you talk more about that? Because I think that, based on the dates for the 2019-2020 school year, I would say it became kind of problematic. When I first started doing the first round of magnet lotteries in November, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of questions. But I'd say that you could argue that if we don't make this an earlier process for parents and students, that in a way is inequitable, and that we're not really accomplishing what we're trying to get here. So I'd love to know what your plans are for future processes with the dates.
Right. So the choice it's really around the contract with Power School. So whenever we contracted with them, we didn't ask or anticipate that we would need so much workspace. We will communicate with them, and because our goal is to do it at the same time on next year.
Well, do you mean the same time for every school next year?
Yes, we're just choice at the same time.
So as a parent, I can say, okay, I'm going to apply for these 4 schools on the same day, and then probably the next day I'm going to know where I landed on that.
That's right.
But what time of year is that? Is that still, is that going to be November, or are we going to try to go back to September?
So I think we'd be very open to feedback around, do we need to bump it back? Because I think that's a good data point that you have.
Because I got a lot of feedback for you on that. It's not my feedback, it's from the parents in my district, and so I would love to have a broader conversation about that.
Mrs. Hill.
2 things. Thinking about getting this information out to families. Tim, you mentioned different ways that we're getting the community engaged early in our meeting today. The number one conversation that I had at a playground before my children went to kindergarten was, where are you sending your children to kindergarten? I think we'd all love for our parents to feel 1,000% about their zone schools, but that's why people like choice. I don't know what the plans are for how you reach preschool age parents and how you get them thinking about this. I know that when I was in Leadership Chattanooga, one of the groups did an entire project all about how to get all of this information together, because they felt like it wasn't out there in a simple way. And now the district, you all are doing this. So just something to be thinking about, because active, engaged parents are talking about this when their kids are 2. They're talking about it when they deliver at Erlanger. So the sooner we can get people thinking about these one-pagers that are really exciting, the better. The other thing that I just want us all to remember is that these are Hamilton County's students. Hamilton County's children, not any one school's child. It's not, I don't believe, for a principal to decide whether a child is good enough or smart enough to attend a given school, or the right color skin, or the right amount of money in the bank account. It's Hamilton County's job to give every child in Hamilton County the opportunity for a great education. And so the young woman who started our meeting today prayed that we would put students first. And in all of these policies, we need to keep that as our number one.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I just wanted a point of clarification with Dr. Johnson. On the hardship cases, principals do get to decide whether those kids come to their school or not, and you know that. So that's just what I'm saying. And I know all of these students are Hamilton County students, but, you know, I still think if we say that these schools belong to the principals and they're responsible for everything that goes on in their school and they have to answer for everything that goes on in their school, it's not a race thing. It's not anything, because there's some people there's some kids I know that are in some of the schools that I wouldn't want in my school if I had a choice not to take them. If I were some principals, if I saw them coming, I would run and hide. But you know, I mean, if that's your zone school, you have to go there. But if you're going to go, and our system is going to allow you to go to a school of your choice, then they expect something out of you as well. And that certain thing is behavior, because, like I said, a few students can ruin a whole school. I mean, we like to think they're all sweet and you can pinch their little cheeks and tell them how cute they are. But I think we know this past week that sometimes schools from every area of this county, we've had problems. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a race thing, it's not anything, it's just the student themselves. And I just don't want, like I say, I'm like Steve, I just don't want it to become a dumping ground. I know at one time in this system, we had a little formula that they figured out, and a lot of people don't know this, but there are things that go on that I happen to know have gone on, but this was years ago. There was a little formula that you figured out how many students you could take from this school who was failing and send them to this school who was doing very well. It wouldn't really bother the school that was doing very well, but it sure would help those to come up so it looked better at the state level. I've seen that happen. I know that's happened, and I don't want to see that happen again. Because it's hard to fool an old fool, and I'm an old fool, and I know what I've seen. And it happened in this school system. And by manipulating the numbers and just moving a few students around, it brought some some schools up in the state, but it wasn't enough, because the solution to pollution is dilution, and you can kind of dilute those kids in there into a real good school, and it doesn't really bother their grades, but it brings another grade up to keep the state off of our back. I've seen that happen. It's been years ago, but it did happen, and I just don't want to see it happen again.
Just real quick, so the solution to pollution is I got to use that one, Rhonda. I always learn something, never do.
Learned it in chemistry.
And I was going to tell you that if you saw my son, my 7-year-old coming, you'd probably duck and hide. Talking about terrorists coming in buildings. But we, you know, again, we're just trying to, we want every school to be great. I mean, it's at the heart of where we are, and definitely no desire whatsoever to move kids. We just believe in options, you know, and there's a lot of options already here. A big part of it, I think, it's great that we have a lot of board members that have kids and have had kids in the system, because the feedback is helpful. How do we bump the dates back? How do we really look at it differently? So that's at the heart of what we're trying to do.
Do we have a motion? Oh. Yes.
So moved.
Second.
I want to say one other thing. It's time for comments. I did call Jane Reynolds, the principal of Saudi Daisy Middle, and she did say that she talked to her staff and they were for this. But Justin, I'm going to trust that you're going to fix up this end to this. If not, I may not can change it, but I sure can talk to a lot of TV and radio stations and tell them what kind of scoundrel you are for not taking care of this. But talk radio is a powerful thing. But I really do. I'm very serious about this. I've been for open enrollment, but I want to do it for all schools and not just our hand-picked few. I think anybody that has open seats, we ought to be able to put kids in them, just not a few. And I'll be glad when we can do that. And but I do trust that you will take care of that on the back end. If not,
we will now. Jane can vouch for. Yeah, I'll follow through.
Well, I started to say, Jane's like me. She don't have long till she retires, so there's no telling what she might say.
So we may need to call talk radio more often, because they're spewing some things that aren't always right. I almost called in the other day, but thought Dr. Johnson would get mad at me.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Dr. Highlander?
I'm for it when the specifications are made, but until they are, I'll vote no.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Well, I'm gonna have to vote no because I just want to see this end tied up. I just don't trust some of you guys sometimes to do what you say you're going to do.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, that brings us to item C under board matters, the agreement between Chattanooga State, the TCAT, and Hamilton County Department of Education for the temporary use of the Hamilton County High building. Is Mr. Maynard here? Do we need to make any
So
comment?
moved.
Yeah, Dr. Howland can probably talk about this one too.
I could. It's a great program.
We're excited about partnering with TCAT. They're bringing programs in. They will. They're actually doing some renovation. They're going to leave a lot of equipment for us: welding and marine and boating, marine and motorcycle. That's right. And so very excited about that. Also, there's some future benefit for Central and Ottawa to have access to that and the spaces that have been sitting idle for a long time. So they're coming in. They're doing a lot of the work. Justin's been working with them just to make sure they understand the
Correct me if I'm
structure.
wrong, and open enrollment as a Future Ready Institute there. Am I correct?
Well, all of our Future Ready Institutes are open enrollment.
There you go.
So it would be.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We need a second.
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. And then that brings us to the request for school name approval for the new Howard Middle School.
Yes, so as you know, Howard Middle will be opening in August. There's been a collaborative group of community members, teachers, administrators, all working together to plan this exciting new school. And they have come up with a new name, which is Howard Connect Academy. So we'd like you to consider this recommendation and approval tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Third.
Any discussion? Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Okay, so events and announcements here. December 3rd, Network Advisory Meeting will be here in the boardroom at 4 o'clock. December 17th, Textbook Committee Swearing-In Ceremony at 4 o'clock. December 18th, Learning Communities Advisory Opportunity Zone at Donaldson Elementary. December 19th, that will be the Christmas luncheon here in the boardroom at 11 o'clock. Also, December 19th will be a half day for students into the second quarter. December 20th through January 2nd is winter break. December 24th, 25th, central office is closed. December 31st through the 1st, central office will be closed. January 3rd, teacher professional developments. January 4th, also teacher professional development. That'll be system-wide. January 7th, school will reopen. January 11th, report cards will be given out. And then our next board meeting will be on the 17th. Do we have any other announcements?
I have
events?
just one question.
Good, Ms. Hill.
What's the status on our Hamilton County School Board meeting with our state delegation? I know we were trying to get something just with our two groups.
Yeah, I saw Jenny just leave. We're working on an early January date. We've had conversation with Central Garden Hires assistant. He's trying to coordinate with the delegation to get a good date. We had talked about December, and we start looking at December, and there's so many different pulls at them really in December, and we know they're going to session, but we're looking at an early January date, and so we'll get finalized date on that and probably host it in a school tentatively. I think we've talked about Red Bank, and we'll get you more details.
Terrific. And then we were meeting with County Commission next week.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Good stuff.
Monday evening, yes.
Terrific.
Yes, thank you. Mr. McClendon.
Just wanted to ask Joe, where are we at on committees?
We are going to get to, Dr. Johnson has already mentioned a January work session that we'd like to meet, and so committees will be a part of that. And what I'll ask you all to do is be thinking about what that's going to look like going forward. Is it the desire of the board to have committees again, and if so, which committees in particular, or would it be the desire of the board to have a point person for those items that we have had in the past, and maybe some new areas going forward? So be thinking about that, and we will bring that back up in January when we reconvene. Ms. Robinson.
I just wanted to give an update. Howard High School had a great theater performance on Tuesday night, and really it's really the resurgence of their theater program. John Lennon, Kathy's husband, has done a great job as the new theater director there, and has really brought a lot of life back into the theater, the physical theater at the school. So I'm really excited about what's happening, and so I just really encourage you all to keep an eye on what's happening at Howard High School with their theater program, and please support in any way that you can, especially if you're a theater lover like I am. So just want to give them a shout out and brag a little bit.
Okay, we're adjourned.